Session is preponed or there was some technical wrongs. I was notified as 12:10 as my session. So should I start now?
Yes, ma'am. If you are ready to start right now, with your permission, we can proceed.
Sure, yeah. Okay. I mean, I just thought it's going to be an interaction, but then I kind of got to know that it's a blended session that you're actually having the students in the two halls physically as well. And sorry for making you all white. I mean, there seems to be some confusion in the timing that I received and all that. And this is a sorry for the on behalf for the audience. Okay. I mean, I see that about 75 plus 75 participants there. So it's nice to interact with you. So, it's a beautiful thing to be back on the campus. I'm sure it's a very beautiful campus as well. So it's a very, very nice feeling. So before I get into the session, I just wanted to kind of, can I do a quick audience poll or I just thought it's all going to be online and I thought I will do a Mentimeter type. Looks like it doesn't work now. So audience there, just looking at the online screen. Yeah, I mean, just relax and like, yes, lady out there, the third row, fourth row. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Ma'am, actually, since we all are, about to begin a corporate journey very soon, so we would love to hear about your journey. How has it been? And, you've been CEO of Cognizant Foundation and everything. So we would love to hear from you. What is your experiences? And now there are many disruptions in the workplace that are entering. There's Industry 5.0. There are changes like 4-day work week. And changes are like, disruption is something which is happening in the industry nowadays. So we would love to hear about your journey on the same. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful. I mean, you seem to be summing up the theme of the summit. Maybe you're one of the organizers there. Okay. Yes, Professor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Professor. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Please, ma'am, allow us to introduce you so that these students are waiting now before, because we abruptly joined, but then these students are so eager to introduce you before we start this session.
That's okay. I mean, we'll cut short. Anyway, we're starting this session late, so I can probably give you a different kind of an introduction. Okay, so let me I think she kind of beautifully asked a question saying that you're all stepping into the corporate career, so sharing my experience. Probably my introduction will come along that line.
Wonderful. No, before you join, in fact, I was telling students that it's been 2 years that I've been looking for ma'am to join us in the Leadership Summit. And this is now that we kind of know you could find some time for us, and we are very, very glad for that. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thanks a lot, Professor. Okay, I mean, so let me just give a brief introduction. Okay, I did my bachelor's in engineering and master's in engineering, both in electrical. Okay, nothing connected to. I mean, but anyway, I enjoyed and I did my master's at Kharagpur and started my working at Delhi. I come from a very, very middle class South Indian family, very conservative family, so to say. Okay, so I mean, even just for the women leaders out there, or the kind of coming from a family that where even stepping out of the house is like you need to have a lot of protocol, a lot of protection, and stepping out of the city and doing your studies is like I had to do my share of dharnas and and thankfully my parents were extremely supportive. I come from a family of 3 daughters, all 3 of us are sisters, so there were a lot of reservations saying that women doing engineering and that too first were doing engineering, what will happen for them? I mean, I've come from the days that were if you go into the education, your marriage will get delayed type. Okay, so so that was the thing. And then I kind of, after the master's in electrical engineering, I stepped into IT at Tata Consultancy Services. So let me share that experience. I was pretty much like you saying that what to expect, what is there in the corporate world to be. And even before wondering that what to expect, something interesting happened. There was a magazine which came back and interviewed all the fellow women colleagues. I mean, they were very senior in my team, and I joined one of the tools and a platform team. And I myself was trying to understand whether I made a right decision from electrical to information technology. It was not that information technology was very popular or something like that. To be very honest, that offered me a job in Chennai where my parents are living, and that was the only consideration for choosing that as a career. Nothing great. Okay, so that's how I started. And then like people are coming back, and some magazine was coming back and interviewing all the women leaders, saying that why women are not making it to the top. I was first figuring out what is the word career mean for that matter, right? And they were saying, why is that women are not making it to the top of the career? And that question was very intriguing for me. Saying that what, and all the other fellow women colleagues were saying that no, it may be a conscious choice that women try to kind of balance it, this and that. And that's why, like, they are probably doing it. So I kind of went along with the rest of the people's sentiment. I said that I still remember that interview that I gave. I didn't even know what the career means and all that, and what is that I should look forward. But when they came back and asked me, I said that probably people are making conscious choice. That's just came out of my mind, saying that people are making conscious choice. And I always kind of reflect on that statement a lot after that. So that's what I assume. That then later, actually, having been, for this long, close to about 31, 32 years in the overall career, I can now understand and say that, it's partially true. Yes, two people make conscious choice, but there are also systemic things, okay? And you beautifully asked that, there are a lot of changes that are coming from the industry, that lady out there. So let me tell you, like when I joined, I didn't know what was IT and all that. I joined a mainframe team and I was in the tools and the platform and so on. And people are saying mainframe is actually going to go away. It's all like a dinosaur. It's the environment is like a dinosaur that it's kind of go extinct. And touch me, even after 30 years, they're still alive. Okay, so one thing that I've realized in technology is that many things come. Not necessarily everything get replaced. Things kind of find its own space and it kind of coexists. And it's not like that it's going to be a perfect. That is. I never. At least I can say the last 21 years. Every 3 years, 4 years, there's always a cyclical trends. It could be anything. Some cyclical change that kind of comes and down and ups and downs and so on. And then there are a lot of disruptions that happen. I've seen a lot of disruptions starting from 9/11 and what it impacted in the market, what it impacted for people, like how people the jobs were impacted, right? So there were people in my team whom I had to take care, protect them in their career and so on. A lot of other things, look at 2000, that was a big internet boom, right? We didn't know we all came back from those punch card days, like if you have to develop a program, we have to submit, and then like the resources are very, very scarce. So they will submit in the night time. They will run the compiler and come back and tell you what mistakes we made on the next day. So it was not an instantaneous feedback that we used to get. That's how we started. And it's just not like I still remember the good TSO messages that we used to do in mainframe, like, 1 line, 2 line. That was SMS type. Not SMS, it was a mainframe SMS type of work where we used to make those 1 line communication. Internet came, everything changed. 2000, 2001, that was a big wave. And people had to suddenly go back and learn. More than learning, they had to unlearn. People said you have to unlearn a lot and learn new things. But I always believe that no learning goes waste. Okay, you always, because constantly what you learn is how to learn. You learn how to learn because there are always changes, there are always challenges kind of thrown up on your face, and you have to keep learning. So that's exactly what we kind of encouraged our teams to do, like we organized and so on. And you talked about these gig workers, 4-day weeks, and so on. I saw your themes, that was interesting because I'll just give you a bit of introductions of a professor, like also myself. So I kind of got into this IT industry. I worked in US and UK for a short while, but of course, always wanted this urge to come back and be part of India only. So kind of came back, and we're doing a lot of this program, and this 2000 thing came. So people said that, we should learn something new. So I kind of went back after 6 years, 7 years, being an architect and all that, started again learning a new technologies from the scratch, and said that I went back saying that I've learned something new. If you have something coming along that, I would like to pick it up. And that's how I started. And they said, okay, there's a new internet project. It's new for the company. Would you like to take it up? We said, okay, we'll take it up. We didn't know what to expect. And then we had a large team, and none of them knew the technology. As long as they spelled, there are Java days, as long as they spelled Java, Java, we took them on the team. It was that. And all that I asked for is that, are you ready to commit your time and learn? That's all it is. It was beautiful. And it was a Japanese customer. You know how Japanese work, right? The perfection, the quality. And then we had to have translators, whatever we were talking in English, we had to translate it in Japanese. And they reply back in Japanese. We have to understand and interpret. There were a lot of requirement gaps as well. We didn't know whether these getting translated right or whatever they get up is translated right. It was a beautiful, very worthy project. People slogged like anything. We never saw Christmas, we never saw Diwali, we never saw Dashra, Durga Puja, nothing. We were just slogging out. But that 6 months, I would say it's a very happening time. Like it was, we went back, it was a very live, it was also the telecom boom. It was the telecom industry, and then people were just putting all the cable connections, not in India so much, but in Japan and US was very prominent. And many of the companies are going bust as well. Like, some things like, it was suddenly will boom and then they'll burst. And so it's a lot of turmoil, a lot of ups and downs. And we were happily, like putting our head into the project and program and delivering for the Japanese customer satisfaction, which I would always become a hallmark for quality. Okay, it's like, we're so happy that we finally, when we said, we can't afford to make a mistake. And if you have to make a mistake, for them, it's like, how can you make, it's like the quality consciousness, it was at every level. So that actually became a big project. It was the first internet major project for us. And we were happily kind of sailed that through. And so that put me back and said that, they said, would you want to head the quality globally for the delivery for the, I said, I didn't know what to expect. I said, okay, from the delivery said, okay, I'll try it out. And then I moved in. One thing that I was looking at it is, instead of waiting for the change to happen, instead of feeling worried about the change, if you kind of proactively embrace that, at least one thing kind of stuck, kind of that the fact that you're proactively gone and embraced and tried it out, right? That stays in people's mind. So you have some cushion to make mistakes in that sense. Because you're proactively going back and saying that, okay, let me try. I never said that, okay, fine, let me try this new role. It was a corporate role. So it was beautiful. And that was the time that the internet came and all the traditional practices, which was coming from manufacturing, like all the total quality maintenance, and then the total, all the TPM, we borrowed. I would say that the industry, we learned a lot from the other industry, and we don't shy away from standing tall on other people's shoulder. If it's something good in construction industry, the project management, program management principles, we take it, we embrace it. Most of the PMP, PMI, we kind of ask our project manager to get certified. We always give reference to how it is in construction industry, how they have a very good parametric based estimation and so on. Similarly, anything good in kind of embrace changes and embrace good practices from other industry and adapted it. So that helped us a lot of agile practices. So we didn't know what the agile was. Like people said, okay, you are living in a world of flux. You can't expect, everything will change because the internet world, that we don't know what to expect out of business, because the many startups were coming and bursting. It was coming like a one-night star, and 6 months it kind of disappeared. So you can't wait. It was not like a NASA type of projects or the ISR type of projects where you'll wait to come back and understand and do a system engineering and try to understand the requirement, design a solution and so on. Everything was moving pretty fast. So we were kind of picking it up and saying that, okay, fine, let's learn it. Let's learn it in an iterative fashion. Like we will learn it, we'll try it out. So the entire strategy of Agile is like about test first approach. What does it mean? You fail fast and learn fast. So it's okay to fail, but you'll fail fast and learn fast. So you do it in small, and kind of like it was a big change management because it was a big people's mindset need to be changed. That you can't wait for a perfect requirement. You can't wait for a perfect solution. Turn it out, like kind of understand, learn, and move on. So that was a big wave that happened, and then like I think today Agile is mainstream in our industry. We know that what type of projects what today in this internet era, I would call it as a internet 2.0, 3.0 era, where that everything is kind of changing overnight. People are busy making very small change, putting it to production directly, putting it to, cycles are very small. So that was a big change that we kind of sailed through, I should say. And what that you're talking about this gig workers, right? This is very interesting. This was a project for us about 10 years back. Okay. 10 years back, because it was not again from the IT industry, right? It was like, if you look at the Boeing, actually they made big announcements saying that how the different parts are actually made from different parts of the world and getting assembled. Okay. So we thought that maybe our industry will also go that way, in the sense that it's not, even today that it is outsourced, offshore, outsourced, and whatever, different parts, like, it's getting manufactured, blueprinted. It's not just that, even the designs were actually there are many experiments happening, right? A lot of research and design data were opened up for public so that people can actually do further research on the top of that. So it was, the world was becoming a little open in that sense, though it was competition, cutthroat competition. Collaboration was recognized as the need. We always used to call it as this, like, it is the competition plus collaboration together, right? It is like, so it's not just about, it's like you have to compete, but you should know when to collaborate. So kind of the things are opening up. A lot of research and design in the data. I can kind of walk through several set of examples that where people started opening up their models and how across the world people pitched it. And the entire open source movement is a very beautiful thing, phenomenon to watch. How a small innovation from somewhere, and you take, for example, even the Unix or Linux experiment or the Java, like it started something as a garage of either car garage, or it is like a campus. Even Facebook, for that matter, it came as actually a small project out of, adapting it, and how innovation started happening on the top of that. That was very interesting for us to watch. It was not just one people's movement, right? It was like across the globe, people were kind of coming together and trying to do that. So that globalization was one, but that kind of virtualization is not just about how the internet is getting virtualized, how the cloud platforms and infrastructure is getting virtualized, how the teams are virtually working, how the teams are organizing themselves. So that was an interesting project for about 10, 12 years back. And we were also watching you all, right? Like millennials. We said millennial generation is going to be very different. And you are not going to come back and say that, okay, I mean, we give a fixed hours of work that you'll be complying to it. And you are, I mean, at least for us, like 12 years back, we said, okay, millennials are coming. It's not like it's to scare people saying millennials are coming. But we were actually trying to understand the youngsters are going to be extremely different. Okay, I mean, people would want to work from anywhere, work anytime they want, work any day they want, and work any amount of time they want. So what do we do? How do we kind of prepare for that? We started a lot of simple movements in the company. Actually, I would say even preparing, I would say many of the seeds for this pandemic were actually done, experimented, and of course the pandemic accelerated it. We had done a lot of experiments allowing people to remote, and we said that, okay, what do we do? Okay, see that other people are, not violating the processes. Let's put some controls in the machinery. It needs to be a secure system. You need to understand how people are working, like how much time they are working. So initially, to be very honest, the entire research was about, there was an element of monitoring, okay, whether people are doing, is that a right behavior, or people are like walking within the right behavior, doing it and so on. Then we realize it's not that. The younger generation is actually far more responsible. Okay, so it's not about micromanaging and monitoring. For example, I'll tell you one of the failed projects, putting a timesheet probe and saying that how many times that you're kind of swapping from which window to which window. Technically it's possible to track people. But then we said, no, it's a violation. We cannot violate privacy. So that kind of tools, we cannot bring it to the organization, saying that it's a privacy. We don't want to go back and say that how much time what people spend on what window in that personal computer or a laptop or a mobile device. So anything that need to be put, it's only for the security purposes of data, which is for the company data and so on. We can never go back and get into the level of micromanaging. So then how do we do? I mean, it needs to be in the mode of enabling people. Okay, so what are the advantages of physically co-located teams, people coming together, having a fixed time? See, even when people are physically located, if you're going to come, if I'm going to come for 4 days, and if I'm allowed to choose which 4 days I want to work and which time slot I want to work, but it's very difficult to get all people together. So how do we do that? So started looking at a lot of collaboration tools. Look at it this way, we started learning. I should say some point of time, the industries and corporates started learning from social behaviors. If you look at historically, the technology, right? Always the armies and defense were at the forefront of technology. Any cutting edge, that will go there first, right? And then there's a lot of banks and financial institutes, data science, analytics, even if you talk about cryptocurrency and all that. So it's about the finance, which is used to be in the leading edge of the technology. Last, a decade or more, you just look at it, like what is Facebook or what is Instagram? It's actually the social side of it where it started taking technology to a different level, right? the grandmas and uncles and and I don't think the Facebook, when they've done that, they would have expected the way in which Indians are using it. They would not have expected this kind of a generation, that is the senior citizen generation. As much as we were surprised about the millennials, we were equally surprised about that the 60 plus and 70 plus and the ease with which they were actually adopting technology. So that was actually posing a lot of challenge for us. Actually, why? Because when you are actually working on Instagram, Facebook, and you come back and you use a company system, and that looks like a very stupid system of like a good old forms, like which we used to go and fill up in a railway station to book a ticket. If you kind of automate the same way, where is the social element in it? Where is the humanness in it? Where is the human connect in it? Okay, so that put us a lot of challenge. It's a very subtle challenge. People might think, this project was about 2010 is when we launched this, the 2.0 project. So we were actually, I was so happy because I was learning. And I mean, again, it was the second Japanese assignment type for me. Like we were working, we were huddling, almost like, thankfully, it was an entrepreneurship venture, which means not in a garage, but in our own rooms, and, brainstorming and trying to understand and observe. And that was, and one thing that I would still remember what my the CEO was kind of saying that, please don't bring your quality culture here. Don't assume that you have a wand and a magic wand and say that, okay, let there be quality and then there'll be quality everywhere. It's not. Here you learn. So, I mean, behaviors like, okay, why iPhone? When a new version is launched, why people are waiting on the queue and picking it up? Try to understand from that, behavior. So a lot of anthropology studies and the design thinking were the very seats there. So trying to figure it out. So something that was interesting for me for the last 12 years was that how people actually embrace technology across age groups now. When people are comfortable with their own technologies, it's very difficult to change behavior now. Now I know that how Telegram is trying hard, how WhatsApp is trying hard. I mean, it's still people are there. It's very, once there are behaviors, it's very difficult to change. But at the same time, when something nice and something fundamentally transformative is coming up, people are actually adopting it with ease. Nobody had any user manual for Facebook. Nobody had any user manual for WhatsApp, right? Look at all the companies, like big systems, any big machineries, any big hardware, software, you'll have a big user manual, you'll have a big training. Why are these, so easy for people to adopt across the age group, So these are something very interesting social study that was going on. And that is what actually got me interested into all this social aspect, completely moved away from the engineering side of the social side of it, trying to understand human behaviors, change management. And that got me too much interested, I would say. So I'm also volunteering a lot on the education sector and trying to understand how we can bring some of this design thinking for education technologies. We're volunteering there for major movements in India for integral education and so on. Multiple IT companies were there as part of that and so on. So it got me so interested. I thought that there was this offering from foundation said that can you come full time into the foundation, which is actually the CSR, but then it was in the development sector. When I came here, it was, from completely hardcore technology coming here, that was again a big change. Somebody talked about here in the social sector, people are in pen paper mode. If you take a spreadsheet, it's very hard. If you ask them, the best technology for them was possibly mails. Okay, they were all on WhatsApp even then. Okay, when WhatsApp came, they adopted it, but nothing more. It was WhatsApp and email, nothing more. So a database thinking or a database decision making was completely new. Of course, analytics and things were buzzword still then, but we come from a complete data warehousing and business intelligence background. That was the IT company backing for us. Our parent companies are Gartner's and Dun & Bradstreet and so on. So we come from a complete database decision-making culture. So to bring that culture here, first people need to understand why they need to use data, why they need to, and how they can leverage technology. So taking technology to the forefront, it could not be done overnight. You have to literally go back, any template you put, they say, okay, it's too much of a process. Anything, we need to be educated. So we have to really think hard how to make it simple. Okay, if WhatsApp is comfortable, okay, WhatsApp is also a channel. If the email is comfortable, email is also a channel. And one thing that I realized that whatever we learned in the previous avatar of that entrepreneurship platform, there could be many technologies and it's very difficult to people move from one to another. Okay, if you have something to offer, you have to take it to them. Okay. I mean, it's a very simple principle, but look at how small chotawala retailers in India are behaving, right? They are adopting WhatsApp business. Even the kirana shops are actually communicating using technology. That's because they are not asking them, they're not building a big website and asking the users or consumers to come there. They are taking the services to where the consumers are. They just observe the behavior. Okay, many people are on WhatsApp, so I'll go and sell it there. Okay, I mean, they know it very well. If there is a temple car festival, they know that the people will assemble there. They will go back and sell their services. That they'll sell their products there. They always take their goods or products or services to where people are. They don't actually try and make big change in the behavior, try to bring them there. So we tried observing all that, and that's exactly what we're trying for the social side as well, sector as well now. Wherever people are, take your services there, take your good stuffs there. So that's exactly what we do, and we are simply, even if you have to collect the data, it has to be a simple form submerged within something that what you're familiar as a technology and collect the data from the field. Because these are important for us to do database decision making. We have to understand that, see, India, if you look at it, we don't need a CSR for India, right? Indian government spends multiple hundreds of crores on the same project, whatever that the company law says at the Schedule 7 and so on. Education, healthcare, these are the top areas where many of the companies are spending their social responsibility money. But these are areas where government is spending, many philanthropists spending. Still, the problem is not completely solved. So, what is the problem? Are people coming together? Again, the same design thinking. Is it a participative approach? What we are working now, trying to take these models and so on. Okay. One thing that, let me sum it up finally and leave it open for questions. One thing that we are very, very serious is we don't want to go back and do everything that what others do. So we thought, what is something that people are kind of not touching? What are the white space? If you take a new product to the market, what do you see? You see where is the white space, where people are not coming together. Even if you have to act socially responsible, we have to go back and say which are the problems which are not yet touched or solved, across. So when we started, we saw that one number that was striking for us, at that point of time, we started this project is about 8-9 years back. India was actually close to the home for 1/3 of world's blind people. Why was it happening? Not just that. 75% of blind people and visually impaired people are actually in the developing countries. So what does it show? So we started looking at, okay, it's possibly, and 80% of that is actually preventable, which means they need not have turned blind or visually impaired. A timely access to the services are not available, timely interventions are not available. So we started looking at it systemically. Initially, we were like supporting all the tertiary hospitals. If you look at it, eye care in India, it is predominantly run by private trust-run hospitals. People like Aravind, which is actually a model studied by Harvard and others. It's a trusteeship model by itself. Aravind, because the entire Aravind hospital is actually run by a trust, like a Tata's. So Aravind Hospital, or if you take Shankar Netralia, or people like LVPI, or Dr. Shroff in Delhi. So these were few of those trust-run hospitals which are actually providing the care. It was not the government care. Primary care was predominantly getting spent on maternal and child health, right? Not, or if at all, it is on the pandemic like this. It is actually on communicable diseases. Not much on the eye care. But then 80% of blindness is actually preventable. And India was home to started with 1/3 and slowly it was coming down to 1/4 of blind people and visually impaired are in India. That was actually hitting us hard, those numbers. So we started, as I said, that we go by number-based decision making. So we started looking at what needs to be done. And one more thing that we also looked at is that many of the babies who are underweight babies who are getting saved now. Thankfully, our medical infrastructure is actually improving, a number of institutional birth is improving and so on. Babies are getting saved, but the underweight babies are also becoming disabled in a way. They're getting saved. Infant mortality is coming down, but the problem is they get so what is happening? This is a women's health, it's the child's health. Women's health, it's not just the women's health, it's the girl's health even during the adolescent age. So even the iron level and anemic level for an adolescent girl has an impact on the child that she is going to bear later in life. So started looking at these kind of data and connections, and that is how we start identifying the programs with these partners and so on. So that's another area of things. So all these changes, just to kind of come back and share my experience, these kind of changes will be there and problems are there all around. If you kind of look and be very collaborative or cooperative and trying to pull the strings from multiple sources, solutions are possible. Okay, so that's exactly what the today's world is. So whether you work for 4 hours in a week or wherever you're working from a few hours, technology is there, right? It's like look at it like you don't have to even have a face-to-face chat. You can you are actually having the same kind of impact. People are conducting web streaming, web live telecast, and there are asynchronous question and answer sessions which is running for the next 2 days, and you're still having a very intellectual exchange of information. So even blogs, people are expressing themselves and following, and even Instagram. It's not that every time you have a live chat, right? I mean, there are live chats possible, but it's not that you're following everything live. You follow it at your convenience and you're still leaving your question and others are coming in. I think that the world, the technology is made it possible. The only thing is that how we use it wisely, how we use it intellectually, and how we use it responsibly is important. And of course, this would be a more beautiful world if it's more inclusive. One end that we are working on the preventive the disability, the other area that we are working in is also like inclusiveness in the society. How can we make our education system inclusive? How can we make our livelihood, I mean the skilling, how can we make more persons with disabilities? How can we have more women coming to the workforce? We are talking so much about inclusion. Let me I see a lot of women faces here, and professor also wanted me to specifically talk about that. Let me talk about, one is that, of course, it's very heartening to see that a lot of people are now coming back. A lot of women are actually coming to work. That is very good. I mean, it's really a big, big change. But there are a couple of things which is still worrying. I mean, this is a dated report, a 2018 report from McKinsey, Power of Parity, right? Advancing women's equality in India. And that actually caught our attention because we've been planning our skilling initiatives for women and persons with disabilities. So we wanted to know what about skilling initiatives that we need to do for women. Okay. And this is an interesting, they actually made a case saying that, advanced women equality can add actually about $12 trillion to global growth. I mean, so they made a case saying that bringing women to workforce is not just for the sake of women, overall the global growth. We can bring more people out of poverty and so on. Specifically Asia Pacific, right? The economies themselves could boost the collective GDP by about $4.5 trillion a year by 2025 and all that. So a lot of cases were made. So, and then they also made a very systemic study about what were all actually the challenges for white women, particularly. I mean, I'm not talking about only the ones who are educated and walking into the workforce and so on. What are all, the challenges that the women are facing, right? It's a considerable way. A lot of things. Why the labor force participation rate, the maternal mortality. They also talked about financial inclusion, digital inclusion, sex ratio at birth, violence against women, many things. But they specifically kind of identified a few areas, right? What we need to, few levers, so to say that what are important. If we have to increase the women's labor force participation rate, first we have to make some systemic changes and how to make it. First of all, it's not just about bringing them to work. They should also be moving to higher productivity or higher rewarding sectors. In fact, that became one of our focus, and we wanted to earn them, not just come to workforce, but also earn them well, because many of the sectors have a differential pay. It's not the women get the same, right? So that's a challenge. And second is, we do understand, right? For example, somebody said, my session is advanced. I was actually in the kitchen when I was taking this call. Okay. But thankfully, I have a very supportive husband. Okay. I mean, I just said, okay, take over. My session looks like it's preponed. I'm just going there. That's it. Okay. So he cooks extremely well. And so I'm sure that I will have a fantastic lunch when I go there. But it's not the case. It's definitely not the case. Women's share of workload at home front is extremely different. It's not kind of equally shared. Let's face it. I mean, it's still there today. And this, I wanted to say a message, not just for the women for this audience, but also the men. I mean, I'm very, very happy to see that more of youngsters, it's a cooking as a skill and it is equal for everybody, right? And many people are kind of sharing that. That's really heartwarming, but it's not happening across the straight of the society. So there, the kind of share of load and therefore unrecognized, okay, unrecognized revenue for women's share in the society is pretty high. So these were some of the other pointers that was bringing it up. And second is increasing the number of paid hours, because many of the women are in part-time, right? And the women's productivity also need to be it's kind of need to be relatively improved. And it is true that technology is actually making it easier for women to be equally productive. Okay, so how do we actually make women more? So these are some of our interests, trying to kind of bring in, the equality in this, or equity in the society. So we were trying to work along with our partners in skilling women, right? And it was also very rewarding for us, because we also got inspired by some of the stories of the women, that determination and grit. Now it is this, 2015 when we started our project, it was actually after the flood, which Chennai and the Tamil Nadu, we would not have seen such a flood. It was so devastating, and people lost their jobs. And then next was the Varada cyclone. Again, a lot of people lost their job. For us, this pandemic is so visible. This reverse migration is so visible. That's because, it was so much streamed on the media. It was all around us, across the world it is happening. But these kind of changes, what we are seeing, that kind of disruptions always happen in pockets. I mean, I'm sure that, having a campus in Jammu, I don't have to say that, right? These kind of disruptions always happen in every locality. And who's the most vulnerable? The people who are below poverty, and particularly women in them are the most vulnerable, because they bear the brunt. Even this pandemic, a lot of migration happens, reverse migration. Many people lost their jobs. But there are interesting data. When the actually economy revived back, it was men who got their jobs first, or not the women. Okay. So there are a lot of women who actually still were struggling, and they actually took a long time. Even though the pandemic kind of recovered and people kind of bounced back, they took a long time. Why? Okay, children, the schools were closed down, and they couldn't actually go back to work immediately. And even the industries were actually hesitant, because without very firm news about the schools opening up again, they didn't know that the women will come back and give the same level of productivity. So it was actually a big challenge for whom, I mean, there are a lot of single mothers, even in across the society, a lot of single mothers. So it became a big challenge. So these are the vulnerable communities which kind of identify and try to see how they work part-time, how they can work from home. So the gig workers might be new for these kind of industries. That strata society, gig workers will always be there. You take tailoring, you take apparel industry. They take work home, they do all their artisan work, come back and deliver it whenever they want. Is it 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 7 days a week? How many hours? It's what they determine based on their availability, flexibility. But now every industry is kind of picking it up. So that's where we are. So that's something I just wanted to share and leave it with you. But something that we also learned from these women, it's like, if they are provided with mentorship opportunity, they provide some little bit flexible scheduling. And if there is there's some training and effort in the workplace, consciously, okay, conducting, how you need to have we need to have a work environment without bias, and so on. So these are smaller stuff, which, I mean, if you go back and read those McKinsey reports and other things, you kind of understand, but we also learned it from the field. And something more that we also learned was that many of the times for women, and this now I'm actually turning it to the women leaders here, it's also the self-limiting beliefs of the women that which we need to break. Because many a times we also construct it ourselves within the mind. Oh, okay, we have these constraints. How can I go back? And maybe I shouldn't be talking about these constraints. Maybe I'll be considered, if you have a challenge, first you should actually voice it out, both at the work front and at the home front. We don't do that. And I've been mentoring a lot of women leaders. And now I'm actually a certified executive coach. So I kind of coach a lot of women CEOs and mid-level leaders. And if you see that some of the things that the self-limiting beliefs that they have is like pretty common, it's kind of same set of beliefs. I can talk about a lot of psychology, Professor Martin Seligman's work on positive psychology and all that. I also talked about it in a TEDx if you want to check the video. This is actually hardwired in our subconscious mind, because at some point of time we would have been helpless, and therefore we always assume that we will be helpless. And one of the common self-limiting belief for women is that I cannot fail, because I'm always tested against a very, very tough environment of male I mean, particularly mid-level. I mean, why I'm saying this, you go back and look at the data. When you go to see at the senior level, percentage of senior level leaders and CEO, it's abysmally low. And suddenly the board level women leaders would be little higher. That is because thanks to the law, because that mandated. And many of the friends in the board, they tell it's only a ritual. It's kind of a formality. I mean, they don't actually get to exercise their empowerment in any time. So, I mean, not all environment, but then a lot of them will come back and do that way. So it's like, so if you people have to, it's not just about having a career, but also have a growth in the career and break the glass ceiling. Many of those self-limiting beliefs that, trying to be overcautious, trying to be, I cannot find, those kind of mindsets need to change. So a lot of things, trying to be a perfectionist, trying to be because they will never take risks. If you have this attitude of I cannot fail, we will never take risks. And life is all about when there are challenges, again, I kind of come back, when there are challenges, when there are changes, when there are cyclic challenges, when there are disruptions, both in technology and all around us, embrace it. Because if you fear that and run away from it, those kind of situations are going to keep chasing us. Rather, we chase it and then embrace it. Things will be okay. We might be failing here and there, but we learn. Every failure is actually an opportunity for us to learn and move forward. So with that, I'm sorry. I mean, it's been a long answer. I just asked you only 1 or 2 questions. So back to you, organizers. So any questions, I can take it from there.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was an extremely insightful session. You touched upon very relevant issues such as opportunities in related industries, agile supply chain.
Sorry, you are not audible for me. Just a minute.
Can you hear me right now, ma'am? Am I audible to you?
I put in a question because you're not audible for me. I don't know whether it's a challenge at your end or my end.
No, ma'am, actually, we can also not hear. It's not.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you, Srishti. No, actually, what was my first reaction? Hope I was audible all along.
Are we audible to you?
But anyway, I could see the nods here and there, so that is fine.
Is it audible now? Can you hear us right now, ma'am?
See if you can put the questions on the chat. That's okay as well. So if you're within your hall, if it's audible for you anyway, you can put the questions in the chat and I can read it out. I mean, I can. Okay, for the others who are virtually joined, why don't you kind of put your questions first if you have any? So let the people who are joining from the hall in Jammu, let them come back. You can also raise your hand so that unmute and speak. That's also fine. Okay, if you don't ask questions, I am good at this. I will ask questions. Yes, Shriya. Yeah.
Ma'am, as women, how do we find the right kind of mentors in the industry which is male dominated?
Beautiful question. I appreciate, first of all, the question coming in from someone joining, because you made a right step. Looking for a mentor is a first step. Okay. I mean, there's always sayings and old wisdom saying that if you look for a guru or a preceptor, it always appears before your eyes. So that yearning for having a mentor is a first step. Okay. And having a right mentor, let me answer from my own experience. I've never looked for one mentor. Okay. Maybe because it's my nature, because it's not work for me. Because it's not that I cannot go back and compare myself with somebody else's life and then take that experience, because the mentoring comes from their life's experience as it is. There's always in the back of my mind, so maybe my life is different from theirs, right? So that comes. So I always look for multiple mentors, and they take whatever comes. For example, like one of my, I mean, I've always used my bosses as mentors. Like I've never I've worked with multiple, and I've also, my boss also embraced since I've taken it. So that has actually helped me because I picked up multiple styles, and I picked up many good things from many people. I can tell that this person was very good in time management, this person was very good in organizing, the work area, including the virtual work area, including the laptop, everything that I picked up from different people. How some people kind of go back and speak to the customers, not trying to sell, but being very honest and candid. I've learned it from my, my mentor, Lakshmi Narayan. He will go back and tell that, okay, very clearly say that, so I didn't come. I mean, for example, there was one customer who would come back and said that they were coming and telling, we try to have a right type of chaos in the organizations. We need entropy in the organization, need to be at a certain level, only then the innovation happens and all. So that was the kind of a pitch the customer was giving. He went back and said that, yeah, we also have chaos in the organization, but doesn't mean it was all planned, it just happens. So it was just a beautiful, the sense of humor he broke, it was like, and I was actually next to him who was supposed to talk about the process because I was heading quality globally. So I have to go back and talk about how we are so structured. And before that, it just makes me the sense of humor that, yeah, we also have a lot of chaos in the organization. That's not necessarily by design. I mean, just to make, because the customer was talking about how you need to have a right set of entropy to have innovation as a culture. So I was actually picking it up. It really threw me through, I mean, he threw it on my face, but I was so happy that, like the kind of honesty and the candidness, that kind of handling any situation. These were something that, so you cannot look at one mentor. So how do you look for the perfect mentor? Every human being, right? No human being is perfect. Now, if I go back and quote, the first confession I make is that don't extrapolate anything that I share. I'm just here to listen to you as a sounding board type, because none of us are perfect and we are all learning, and that's a journey. So I would say that you're yearning for having a mentor is the right step, and don't limit it. Take as many as you get. Yes, Mrinalini.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. So, ma'am, my question is, the participation of women in the workforce is gradually increasing, but when it comes to leadership roles, there's still a gap. Like only 8.1% of Fortune 500 companies have women CEOs. What, according to you, needs to be done to increase the role of women in leadership positions?
See, as I said earlier, right, it is at multiple levels. See, there are some things that can be done at the work environment level, something that need to be done at a systemic level as an organization, as a country. For example, if you see transportation, public transportation availability, and its linkages to women coming to work, there are studies. For example, organized baby care systems in a country versus women ability to come to work. So there are studies. And flexible hours, right? The industry, sector-wise, some of these sectors are providing that the flexibility of working hours. And even a longer maternity break, allowing a longer maternity break and things like that. So there need to be done at a systemic level. The processes and policies need to change at the country level, the infrastructure, that is support. So that is at one level. And second is the company themselves, what they can do. And the question that she asked, right, the mentors, you certainly need role models. See, if a sector, there's already a role model that where there's a woman that is succeeding, a lot of other women are getting encouraged to come. Okay, so that is one. And also culturally, you need to have an equity play. I mean, there are unconscious bias, and there's nothing wrong. People are grown up that way, right? So that unconscious bias, how you can actually systemically work against that. That can be done. Because even people that what we have not learned at home front, people are learning in the work front. And over the years, our behavior and our personality changes. It gets influenced positively. So that is possible. Those kind of unconscious bias can be removed very systemically by having a good policy, good training, good workshops. Even sensitizing and talking it out makes a huge sense. So definitely role models, mentors, and as well as these kind of removing the unconscious bias that people may have, and talking it out and awareness among the workforce, that is important. And many times women say you cannot be celebrating only with women. Let's accept there are many men behind our success, so we need to equally celebrate it along with them. And of course, sometimes our interests are different, and many, and we are also feeding this bias. So society also has to change, right? I recently listened to my sister actually talking into that Economic Times. She's younger to me. She was talking about how the Barbie dolls were the Lego toys. Difference is there right at the child. I mean, you go back and give a gift of Barbie if it's a girl and it's a Lego building blocks for a boy. Why? Are we kind of inculcating the STEM? Why are we assuming that they would not want to build? Why? So these kind of, today, I see a lot of media, making even the advertisements and trying to kind of make a change and so on. But these need to happen at a multiple level when it comes to society. Every parent has a responsibility. Okay. Every school has a responsibility. Okay. So that's when the kids are nurtured. So the way is the curriculum, the content, need to have I still remember that, when the kids were very young, they come back and there is a mathematics problem. What's your mother's salary? What's your father's salary? What is the family income? The kids were trying to put the mother's salary lower than the father's salary. School children. Okay, that is the bias and even the teachers are giving worked out examples that way on the board. So things like that. So you need to have a very, very conscious effort at the society level. So it needs to have an educational institute have a very big role to play. Every parent has a big role to play. Media has a big role to play. Okay, because people do watch. It's like things like that. So even the kind of any of the mainstream, and I mean particularly the webs, most of those webs, a lot of good content is coming in. Of course, we have to choose what we watch, but there's a lot of good content is coming. So it has to be at that society level as well. So I would say there is an infrastructure at a systemic level where the national policies and other things have to change. The companies have to do that bit. And then the society has to do the bit. And certainly the role models and people who they need to extend help for the other women. So that is important. So I also see a question here from Maya saying
Thank
that
you so much, ma'am.
there is an inherent resistance to change. How can women overcome self-limiting beliefs? It's doable. And as I said, that people need help and people need to kind of talk it out. As I said, there's not just one belief. I just talked about one, saying that I cannot fail. If you just look at the root cause of that, and you also talked about many people are not growing up, right? It's also the society. You don't want to waste your time. After work, you come back. Women also think that because they cannot spend extra time, they have to spend the entire time at work. What they consider as real work. Okay. For one of the other self-limiting beliefs is that if I go back and talk out to other colleagues and others, that is wasting my time. I cannot spend more time at work and therefore I have to be giving my full 100% productivity and therefore any networking event is outside. Okay, and for many women, I had to go back and tell them that it's part of your job role. Take it as considered as your job role. Why do you worry about that? And then, for example, and the other common, in my coaching, that people come back and say that, okay, I don't have time to develop worldly knowledge. Okay, what is it worldly knowledge? No, I need a broad-based knowledge about the industry. Where do you get it? I need to read newspaper. I need to subscribe to magazines. I said, okay, fine. Did you dedicate time? No, I'm not able to dedicate time after going home, which is fine. What about your working hours? Did you dedicate some hours at your working hours for self-learning? No, I want to give my full percentage as long as I'm at work. So it's and actually, interestingly, I'm not seeing that in men. They see interacting with people, they see participating in these events as part of their work and job responsibilities, and that's not coming. So this is another limiting belief. I need to go back and tell and talk it out, schedule it. There's a saying that if you can't find time, just schedule it. Just don't worry. If you can work in those hours, that many hours, can you schedule it? Can you actually take the time? It's a good old wisdom, right? Sharpening the tool versus using the tool. You also need to spend time on sharpening the tool. So if you have to build that industry knowledge, better spend time on it, right? Sometimes you have to take out time to do that. Do you think gender pay gap is real? Yes, Pallavi, unfortunately, it varies across sectors. Okay, I'm coming from a privileged sector, like the IT industry, where there is absolutely zero differentiation. Okay, from a pay structure standpoint, but a lot of industries, and particularly at a workers level, working level. So that is where the automation and many of those technology enablement helps. We have to see that how we can structurally bring. I think I'm also answering the previous questions of Mayans. Not just the self-limiting beliefs, you also have to ensure that structurally you have to bring them for high productive and high paying career structures. Now, how do you do that? Technology comes as a big help there. How can you train them? How can you use? So even like, for example, even you take any of that. Today the automation is real, and instead of looking at automation as something that it will replace people's jobs and therefore people lose the job, how can it make and provide an equity play for people, a person with disability or a woman? Because with that technology, they actually have an equity play. In terms of their mobility, in terms of able to do at the same level of productivity and so on. So did I answer your question, Mrinalini and who else? Pallavi, Mayank? Mrinal, you have not answered your question yet, is it? Sorry, if you missed it.
Yes, ma'am, you answered my answer question well, and also I can totally relate with the example that you gave of mother's salary and father's salary. That has happened with me as well. Thank you so much, ma'am.
So, I mean, what I'm saying is some of these self-limiting beliefs, you don't even understand. It's very it is unintentional. Okay, it is unintentional. I mean, nobody does it deliberately. But you have to sensitize people.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, it's not about fighting for your rights. It's about, politely sensitive. I mean, of course, you also have to fight when it has to. I'm not saying that there are places where you have to fight, but it's not every time a fight. Actually, you don't have to assume that it will be a tough fight everyone. It's the first step of sensitizing actually goes a long way.
Yes, ma'am, for sure.
Ma'am, we have a few questions in the chat box as well.
So anything from the room? Yeah.
Yeah, we can perhaps take one. The first question is, ma'am, CSR programs in cognitive foundation are quite impressive, especially the enhanced focus on skilling of women.
I think you're still not audible. Yeah. It's okay. We'll take a backup. If you're connected, just chat it. Just put the text chat there. That's good enough. Okay. So still, till the time that I don't know how much time that I have. Probably, they'll sensitize me when it's time up. I think. So till the time that I'll also take one more. One more self-limiting belief. This is the dangerous belief. Okay. Many young women, they come with a dream. A young child, they are not short of dreams. You have a dream. But systemically, over a period of time, when I see a mid-level leaders or a senior level leaders, and somehow before getting into that, um, okay, what's your dream? What is that you want to become? I said, I don't know. Pretty dangerous answer. In the sense, there is a sense of, there is a soberness when they say that. I mean, that hurts me a lot. I mean, there is a systemic feeling that even if I have a dream, it may get crushed. Why I have one type? I mean, let me not face the disappointment type. Okay, so that's I feel it's very dangerous, and I kind of quote a lot of examples. I mean, I always have a friend who was a person with a disability, women, and how kind of she came against all the odds and all that. That's that she us is the story kind of swimming against the tide as a book. So I kind of quote our book and a thing. And she's a friend of mine as well from the development sector, Madhavi. And similarly, a lot of people, like even when the people that whom we are working on the field, the people who lost their husband due to the pandemic and coming back and like having completely at 35, that's when they get into the work, and they're starting micro enterprises. So, and when we go there next time, that when they come back and say that now I can do this, I can actually expand my thing. So it's the spark of the dream. That kind of fuels your passion. That gives you that energizes you, right? That's another limiting belief that I cannot afford a dream. So, I mean, wherever I go, I make it a point, just don't get into that situation. Nobody can take your dream away from you. You have the right to have a dream. Yes, on chat, Anirudh.
No, ma'am. I just wanted to convey to you that we had a few questions on chat. Really sorry for this technical glitch, and
No,
ma'am,
it's okay. We need challenges. That's when we will learn how we can actually do it differently.
very rightfully said, ma'am. In fact, a lot of the things you touched upon in your speech, like having constructive collaboration and virtualization and functional teams, that is what we are experiencing right now because this is a virtual platform. So, ma'am, we have actually overshot a time a bit. I in no way want to cut short your session, ma'am, and we have really enjoyed every bit of learning that we received
Thank
from you over
you.
here. There are quite a few hands raised here, and we have some questions in the chat as well. But unfortunately, due to paucity of time, we won't be able to take them, ma'am. So, if we have your permission, we can just give the outro, ma'am.
Sure. And anytime the questions, if you want to summarize and send it across, I would be happy to send the response back. Okay. So it was a
So,
very pleasant interaction for me too. Thanks a lot. Thanks for the
that
opportunity.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That was an extremely insightful session, and you touched upon very relevant issues like opportunities in related industries. We spoke about agile supply chain. We spoke about lean operations and the internet boom in an era of rapid disruptions in small cycle time. That was really great, ma'am. We also spoke about gig workforce in the context of a global assembly chain. We spoke about constructive collaboration, about virtualization, which we just spoke about again. Then the right practices in emerging generation. That's really pertinent for budding management graduates for us to understand what is the right practice and where is the industry headed. Also, the challenges faced by women in various sectors, ma'am. You really touched a point on that because I completely agree that societal inclusivity and the beauty of embracing the change in the current time is the way to go. But there is very much a prevalent systematic bias and gender gap in our workforce. And it's important that in forums like these, we speak about these issues because while leadership is a place, we should not let go of all the challenges that we faced in getting to the point we are at in a patriarchal society traditionally. So, ma'am, thank you very much for joining in today and addressing our students. It was a huge honor to host you, and we look forward to hosting you sometime on the campus, ma'am. A great eminent
Sure.
personality like you. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
looking forward to it. Thank you.
Great, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking out your time, ma'am. And we once again apologize for all the errors on our end, but we are glad that the session
No,
went
it's
fine.
okay. We learn from it. It's fine.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you
We
very
learn
much,
from
ma'am.
it. Thank
I'm
you.
sure
Thank
that
you.
our students have a lot to take away from this.
Thank you. Thank you.